Hi, Kara here with the Kera team at Keller Williams Realty. I'm going to go over the 5 stages of buying a foreclosed home and some of the most common terms and phrases that you'll hear and what they mean. So, step number 1 is finding an agent and a lender that are familiar with bank-owned transactions. So, banks hire agents for REO or real estate owned properties at the sheriff's sale. So, as we discussed previously, the steps are sheriff's sale and then the redemption period and then, cleaning out and listing. So, the banks actually hire the agent at the sheriff's sale. So, at the very beginning of the foreclosure process, throughout that sheriff's sale, the agent actually will manage the property throughout the whole 180-day redemption period. So what that means is that a lot of the time, the real estate expert or the agent that the bank hires as their real estate owned property expert knows about properties coming up to 6 months before they actually hit the market. So that's the first benefit of having an agent that specializes in real estate owned properties, is they can keep an eye out on these homes for you up to 6 months in advance. Another advantage to having an agent and a lender that have handled real estate owned property transactions is the knowledge that they have. They are aware of options available to buyers. Many other agents or lenders may not be as familiar with the options. So getting somebody that's maybe not familiar with it, you might be missing out. Step number 2 is, if it's not going to be a cash offer, getting that pre-qualification. With a lot of these foreclosed properties, you're going to see that they move fast. So you have to be prepared ahead of time before it hits the market. A lot of people will say if it's hit the market, it's already too late. So be prepared, have knowledge of what your buying power is and what options are available to you. So many times I see people miss out on these properties because they're, one of the biggest questions I always get is it financeable? That's always a loaded question, and it's always a really loaded answer because there's so many different options out there that not all lenders offer, and not all agents are aware of. There's everything from construction loans to rehab loans to escrow options. So if you work with an agent that has done many of these, they've seen the different options available. They've seen how buyers have gotten through the obstacles of getting a home financed. So they know that there's options available. They also know and work with lenders that have helped buyers obtain these loans and work through them. So definitely, huge benefits to having an agent that specializes in foreclosures and having a lender. And the great thing is that those agents and those lenders typically already have a really solid relationship. So something to keep in mind there when you're searching for lenders or agents, if investment properties or distressed properties is kind of what you're looking for. Step number 3 is get comps, pull comps, know what the fair market value is on the home. Know the amount of pricing for the repairs in order to bring the home to an average standing. Having an REO agent or a real estate owned specialty agent is really beneficial in this case as well, because I do a ton of BPOs, and BPO is a broker pricing opinion. And what that is that's me figuring out what the fair market value is for the home, assessing what kind of damage there is to the home, what the cost of those repairs are going to be, and if this home was in an average standing, what it would sell at, and then figuring out how much repairs are needed, and then helping the bank figure out what the pricing is. I price distressed properties on a daily basis. So having that ability to pull those comps help you with finding that fair market value, and then figuring out, what repairs would be needed is kind of what I do. Figuring out the bank's bottom dollar, there's no rule of thumb for that. keep in mind there's not really much emotion on the seller's side. It's really a numbers game. So knowing the fair market value of these homes, knowing the damage, that would need to be repaired to bring it to an average standing, that's really kind of the key in figuring out what the bank's bottom dollar is to sell these homes. So yeah, that's another benefit of having an agent that specializes in distressed properties. Step number 4 is bidding on the home. Bring the higher price. I hear all the time, what's it going to take to get this house sold, or what's it going to take to buy this house? Again, there's not a lot of emotion connected to these sales. It's all a numbers game. Remember, the banks know the value of the home that they're selling. They've done their research. They've paid for their broker pricing opinion. They've hired a third-party appraiser to go out and figure the fair market value. They know the repairs that need to be done. They know what this home is worth. That also brings us to multiple offers. So a lot of times with distressed properties, they hit the market and all of a sudden they've already got 3 or 4 offers. So if the agent comes to you and says there's multiple offers, well, what does that mean? That just means there's more than yours. There's more than one offer. And so the banks, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll stop everything, they'll send it back to the buyers, and they'll say, bring us your highest and best. Highest and best, what does that mean? Well, that means this is your last chance to give them your offer. I always have people say, well, what should I do? What should I do? At this point, my biggest piece of advice is find a price that you are comfortable with, that if the seller comes back and says, sorry, we accepted another offer, you're okay with that. Once it sells, once it closes, if you find out that it was, $500, $1,000 more than what yours was, and you say, oh shoot, I would have went higher, then that wasn't your highest and best. My biggest piece of advice is figure out what that number is that you're comfortable with, that if you lose the bid, that you're okay because you know that that was your absolute top dollar that you would be willing to pay for that home. Let's see. And then step number 5 is remembering that the home is sold as is, where is. So what does that mean? You're going to hear that a lot when you're working with distressed properties or bank-owned properties. As is, where is. This means that there are no repairs that will be approved prior to closing. The seller won't do any additional repairs, and they will not approve the buyer to complete any repairs prior to closing. A lot of times you will see that on the description of a home that the plumbing does not hold pressure. I get a lot of questions on that. What does that mean? Is it within the home? Is it outside of the home? I'll tell you right now, we don't go into a lot of detail as to why it doesn't hold pressure. When we access a home and we test the water lines or the gas lines, we use air. We push air into the system and we get it to, pressurized. And if it keeps that pressure, then it tells us that the water lines hold pressure. If it starts leaking out, we'll see the gauge drop down. It's not holding the pressure. We then document that the water lines or the gas lines don't hold pressure. Typically, it's going to be within the home. It might be outside of the home. And we don't necessarily go to the next step and say, okay, where is it leaking? We just say, we know that it doesn't hold pressure. What does that mean to you as a buyer? That means when you do an appraisal or an inspection, we will not be turning water on, because more than likely if we turn the water on, it's going to leak somewhere. It's going to cause more damage to the home, and we're trying to prevent that. So if you ever see the plumbing does not hold pressure, more times than not, we're not going to be able to turn the water on for the inspection or the appraisal, which in turn could, have some issues with the financing. But again, if you have an agent that's comfortable with REOs, that has done numerous transactions, and you have a lender that knows what they're doing with them as well, there should be very few hiccups along the way, and typically it's a pretty smooth transaction. So again, let me know if you have any questions. Kara with the Keller team, Keller Williams Realty, 605-415-6636.